Hello and welcome to this episode review of LEGO Masters Season 4. This episode 4? 5?
Is it 5?
I lose track.
That's the one thing I don't have written down.
I think it's
Anyway,
5.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I think
5.
it's 5. Yeah.
They referenced that it was the midpoint.
Cirque du Soliel,
I'm
yeah, so
not sure by
5.
what metric.
Which should be at least 5 then,
Considering we
right?
still have a lot of teams left.
5 or 6. Anyway, so it's the Cirque du Soliel episode.
There you go.
Yes.
Trapeze, high wire, contortionists, all that exciting stuff that I know nothing about. Do you guys ever been to any of these?
I've been
Fancy
to Cirque du
circuses?
Soleil
Okay.
in Vegas. Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
interesting. I find it creepy.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's a little creepy.
the masks
Yeah.
are a little bit
Yeah.
alarming, maybe, but yeah.
The
it's
whole
interesting.
when they go into the water and do the whole thing, I think it's really cool. But yeah,
Very artistic.
it is.
And something very hard to capture in LEGO. But
Yes.
they managed to put together 2 super teams, Team Cirque and Team Soleil. Very, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Great name choice. But so 4 teams, 4 acts per team, for mega team, super team. So very interesting division of teams. I don't think this is the closest thing I can think of is the race episode from season 3, or even season 1 where they put a couple teams together, like facing off with the superhero minifigure build challenge. But how do you guys feel about the structure of this episode compared to other ones? Let's start with Daniel.
Well, I mean, it's not really that much of a surprise or a spoiler, but they didn't send anybody home as they did with all of the other prior team challenges. So,
Yep.
I mean, you pretty much know as soon as that happens. Because there's no metric to judge individual teams by when they're collaborating in that fashion. I can't keep the team names straight, but the team name there was Team All Guys plus Nina and Team All Girls
Yep.
plus Paul. I'm pretty sure.
Soleil was all the guys but
Yes.
Nina, and then
Yeah.
Cirque was kind of more balanced.
Anyway, the one team that was sort of dividing their work more, the team with Nina and Sam, they were kind of building a lot of the infrastructure, and then you had Christopher and Robert were doing a lot of the motion and stuff. So there's just no way to judge it. So I understand why they didn't send anybody home, but it kind of leaves the episode sort of feeling like a wash. You get this nice happy moment at the end, but it's like, all right, let's sort of advance the plot here.
This wasn't your favorite then, huh, Daniel? Yeah. So.
I mean, I'm not going to say like I'm out for blood and somebody should always be sent home or anything, but I think it leaves the episode, after you get over that initial like, oh yay, nobody's going home. It's kind of like, all right, well now.
There was no stakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. How'd you feel about it, Randy?
Makes for good TV though.
Right. I was interested to see how the teams would work, but yeah, it was the same thing. As soon as they got separated, you're like, oh yeah, nobody's gonna go home because you saw how they were both teams separated the work very differently.
Yes.
And so you're like, yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
really. It's very hard to judge and send someone home based on the fact that a good chunk of their build could have been built by somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, and I feel like we haven't got to see too much in Ego because there are so many teams, like each individual build styles yet. Like we haven't really. ML, you're starting to learn them, and now this kind of took that away because it put it in, and I'm more interested in the individual teams.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but it didn't hold my attention as much as like a normal challenge would.
Yeah, individual teams versus individual teams. You didn't that was taken away from this. Yeah. I liked it a lot as far as what they were doing, but it's definitely outside of the normal LEGO Masters, and therefore it's not as competitive. I kind of like a little break where you just get to build and have fun. So if you're thinking of it from that perspective, maybe it helps. Not that I think this really worked as like a stress reliever for a lot of those
Right.
teams. I mean, they still felt like the stakes were high and real, so I don't think they got much of a reprieve.
They don't know if they're going home or
the
not.
week after, or well, really the way
Right.
they're filming day after day after day of working hard and getting your fingers nice and calloused and everything else. So.
What would have been really bold is if they sent 4 teams home on this job.
That would have sped things up.
That would have freaked some people out.
And then next week they could have done brought in some Doms and Ethans.
Yeah, exactly.
Introduced another 3
Oh
new
my
teams.
goodness. Thankfully, they're not that savage, but there's, season 5 got greenlit, so we'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the 4 acts and which ones we liked the best of those. The contortionist one seemed to be kind of a bunch of posed figures moving kind of builds.
Yeah.
The balance challenge seemed. There was 2 very different ones because you had the big planets on the one.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember the ocean one.
Here, 'cause I gotta keep track of which team is which team.
Right.
So Poppy and Ben did balance, and then Allison and Melanie did balance. I don't even remember seeing Allison and Melanie's build too much. I think it was some
I don't think so either.
moving mermaids. Oh, no. Was this when she's reaching down into the boat?
I think
picture it
I think the two teams' acts were not in the same order because I remember them talking about how Aubrey and Ryan's contortion one with the mermaid as the centerpiece was their finale piece. Yeah. Whereas I'm pretty sure on Team Soleil, their contortion act was one of the first ones. They
or in the middle.
Maybe in the middle.
They were
had
dancing around.
A bunch of sort of mixel joint based figures that were just sort of spinning. But
I think Lewis and Alex's high wire act was at the end of theirs, so
I
definitely
think they got to choose the order
of
their acts and the way that played into their story, which is good.
So of those, there's 8 total acts going on. Which of those was your favorites, and which of those were really like not standing out to you as particularly well executed?
I like the high wire that was like perpetually going back and forth. I think it worked really well.
Yeah,
and
Lewis and Alex's high wire. Yeah,
I thought that was my favorite one of the episode.
It was my favorite as well. I'm really surprised they didn't pull off the win because they were
was
talking
shocked.
about it so much through the episode, whereas Aubrey and Ryan, they kind of kept talking, or not portraying in a negative light, but constantly giving them feedback about do this differently, and I guess that's why they gave them the win because they were able to pivot. But it really seemed, leading up to it, the way that they edit this show, that it was going to go towards Lewis and Alex. I really like theirs because, not only did they have that motion with the back and forth, which was continuous, they kept talking about how they had the figure on top and the bottom of that. They also had like a big spinning disc behind it with like stars and planets and stuff on it. I thought their effect was really nice. I thought they should have gotten the win for this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lewis and Alex definitely had the most exciting build for me, and I it's also interesting to see Aubrey and Ryan. They went from very much like seemingly struggling, at least mentally, from that last challenge. And so when Amy comes up pretty early in the episode and is like, I really want to push you to be more motion. This should be the most motion you've ever had in a build. And she's like, really, like, if you don't do this, you're going to be in trouble. And so I think they responded well to that. They really bounced back. So I think as far as most improved, absolutely. Would I have given them the tickets? Probably not, just because I liked Alex and Lewis's build better. But at the same time, I think they did a good job responding to the critique from the judges. So that might be why they got the tickets in the end. But
we have seen that before on rare occurrences where you see the judges leaning more towards rewarding teams that have either vastly improved or respond well to feedback in terms of pivoting, because I think they like to reward that behavior, and it also kind of spreads the wealth a little bit more for wins in terms of just giving the wins to the same 2 or 3 teams all the way through the course of the season. They sort of like to spread it out more to show like, hey, we're gonna reward people who are listening and
improving.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
I feel like when the judges always come and talk to a team and you see some of them don't do it, you're always like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do give them that. It's great that they were able to take what the judges said and work it in, because I think that is a really important. But just overall, I just feel like Lewis and Alex really crushed it with their design.
So 2 big teams as a whole, which of those did you like? The solar moon story with Soleil, or did you like the ocean theme of Cirque better? Who do you think executed better? What do you think about them both picking blue?
Right?
Yeah, that was interesting, because it is a problem you sometimes think about is the supply and demand of certain colors of bricks. And I mean, with a team challenge like this, it's not like if they had 8 separate teams, you might get 2 teams out of those 8 that it would pick the same color. But when you have 2 teams of all 4, now basically all 8 teams are in demand for the same color palette. And so
a lot of dark blue.
They sort of made it work. I mean, you could see how the underwater team sort of pivoted from dark blue to lighter blues going up, and they got sort of a nice gradient out of it. But in terms of theming, I think and execution, I liked Team Soleil's better. I liked the space theme. They also put a lot more work in terms of the cohesiveness all the way around. Team Cirque did that as well. Their builds matched each other with that sort of gradient, but they didn't have as complex of a design that they were matching to each other, whereas Team Soleil had that sort of curved band all the way around with some really nice detailing, a nice elevated stage, some curved partitions and things. So I think their execution and theming was better for me.
Would you agree with that, Randy?
I agree. I like Team Soleil. I think theirs looked more cohesive. All of them had their own kind of feel to them, but then it all merged together well. Whereas I feel like the Team Cirque, it seemed more like individual builds all put together to make it work.
Yeah, that really goes into their...
Oh, no, I love the coloring, and I like when they're making the contortions and the people. I think Team Soleil did that better, even with the mermaid, including mermaids as people. I like the look of Team Soleil's
the figures
people
were,
better.
Yeah,
yes.
more personable maybe. So.
Yeah.
They had more figures and they were simpler, but it actually made sort of a really nice artistic effect.
Yes.
The way that they were layered pretty deep and wide, and the way they were spinning, it would create sort of interesting patterns between them. So even Team Soleil's contortion act pitted up against the winning build overall for the challenge. I think Team Soleil's contortion act was actually a little better. That was Sam and Nina's.
Sam and Nina versus Aubrey and Ryan.
Which they were actually kind of worried. They played up a little bit of that drama where, they had spent too much time working on the infrastructure stuff and not necessarily focused on their own stuff, but I think they made it work really well.
Yeah, Nina came up very motherly, almost like grandmotherly. She was like, Sam, we really need to focus on our own build now.
Yeah.
And I know you like helping other people, but we got to help ourselves first.
That really speaks to the two strategies of the two different teams. Team Soleil started off, they're like, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And so,
which is great.
Sam and Nina did the background.
Great for this.
Right.
Poppy and Ben were doing like the rounded on the front. Lewis and Alex were focusing on the characters and the movement. So it was like the way they had everything teamed out was very interesting. And I think better effect overall.
I'm glad that the challenge permitted them to work that way, as opposed to being sort of a team challenge that's not really a team challenge, where they said, build 4 things that work together, but you still are each only building your one thing. Because if they had done that so that they could judge them individually, it wouldn't really have been there wouldn't have been as much teamwork involved.
The only teamwork involved is where they put the two builds together at the end.
Exactly. It's trying to design yours to fit with somebody else, as opposed to actually collaborating and dividing that work up.
Yeah. Team Cirque still did pretty cohesive build overall. The characters looked all like the mermaid. You can tell is in each scene. So there's some nice combination happening there. But I think one I got to call out Paul and Nalita here. Yeah. Their high wire wasn't as effective for me. It was saved by the fact that it was a blue background, but that was like they had a train track for their high wire, and so it's like it worked. But at the same time, that was the thickest high. It was more like a bridge walk. Yeah. And that's fine because it has the blue background, and from like far away, like in an audience seat, you don't really see it. And I think that's what saved them. But otherwise, I think Lewis and Alex definitely had the actual high wire happening. So.
Yeah, they were going with sort of that illusion. They had wrapped the train track and had it below, and then the figure was actually sort of up on a stick, and there was an actual black either piece of string or flex tube or something that was supposed to be the wire. But it was to varying degrees of success, depending on, like you said, how far you're looking, how far away you're looking at it from.
It worked. They went along just fine, nice and flat. Didn't have to use gravity to move it, so it's whatever. Yeah. Anyway, they only had 10 hours to do this entire build. All these super teams. That was.
I think hasn't almost every challenge thus far been exactly 10 hours.
Pretty much. I think there was one where they had a few extra hours, and it really benefited them.
In there somewhere. Yeah. But I feel like I keep seeing 10, and I'm like, again, really? 10? Yeah. They used to mix it up a little bit more.
And I think that we'll have to look at Morgan's spreadsheet once he drops it in the comments again for us, or I can find the link somewhere.
The variance is definitely diminishing.
Yeah, it was going. Season 2 had like 8 and 12, 8 and 12, and this is more like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. So they're just not even messing around. You just get the flat rate of hours. But everyone was safe. I think we all kind of realized that going in. It's like it would be very unusual to send somebody home on a team challenge. Aubrey and Ryan won the tickets. We've talked about that already, too, on my notes. The tickets, I looked up, they're about $200 each. So it's a pretty good little price. It's nice.
Yeah, they won tickets to Vegas, too, right? Vegas,
and they live in Utah, so that's not too far a trip.
I was going to say, I don't know if this was like your whole Price is Right travel package. I don't know if this included
they get
travel and lodging. Yeah, probably not.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe they'll comment and let us know, because a lot of the season 4 people have been commenting. It's good to hear behind the scenes.
Yeah, tell us if you went. How was the show?
Exactly. How did it go? Did you already see the Cirque du Soliel?
I did wonder that, if they had already been, or if they are not able to go until after the show had aired, because like maybe they would post stuff and then people would know they'd won the challenge or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they couldn't share it.
I wonder if they actually did already go back then, or if they have not yet gone.
Because it's been like getting on a year at this point. So. Yeah. Poppy was out for the judging.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that. They actually called it out. They're like, hopefully Poppy feels better. I'm like, that actually could bring up legal problems, because I know that with season 3, the 2 Latina ladies, the Latina moms, they, one of them left and like walked off set, and they weren't even sure if Tacos would be able to continue her build because part of her team left. And whether that is by choice or by medical exemption, I don't know if that changes it, but that's interesting. So apparently they let Ben keep contributing even though Poppy was gone. Maybe because no one was going home that episode?
Yeah.
I think it was just for the judging there, or was he actually absent for part
He
of
was
the
there
build
most of the
time?
build, based on what I could see in the camera. He was there with his team and stuff, but during judging, he was nowhere to be seen. Probably.
Right. Well, I wondered if the
flu,
judging
illness,
had
or-
happened on like a subsequent day of filming or something. You know, maybe they had finished their builds
Yeah.
and captured like all of the B-roll for them, and maybe the judging wasn't till the next day or something. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Hard
Yeah.
to say.
If I could have sat out judging because I didn't feel well, me and Steve would have taken turns.
Your turn, my turn.
It is interesting that they called it out, though. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like they probably could have gotten away with not saying anything, and you would have just assumed he was in the background.
If it was all
somewhere,
close-ups, then we wouldn't have
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know.
interesting.
That is interesting. Oh, you know what else we haven't talked about, though? The real challenge within the challenge. How many push-ups can Will Arnett do?
Exactly. That was a great moment.
That was
How many
a fun
push-ups can he
moment.
do before he turns it into a joke?
Right?
That's really what it was.
Yeah, so Will Arnett
was hilarious.
will try to get you to do push-ups on set. He tried that with me, and I
did he? So
I basically refused because I was carrying, I had like an armful of pieces walking back from the picker break, and he stops me and he's like, Mark, do 20 push-ups right now. I'm like, you want me to drop these pieces on the floor right now? He's like, all right, fine, never mind, just go. I just ruined the joke for him. But with Chris, he turned it on Will and was like, hey, come on, you can do push-ups too. It was so funny.
Oh
so.
my gosh,
Good
that
for
was
Chris.
hilarious.
Good for Chris.
Yeah.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
And then one final note I had was Chris was in all black, like black on black on black. Like they're truly giving him the villain look. Like everyone else had like relatively colorful outfits.
Was it like a turtleneck or something too? I mean,
It was like a button-down black shirt with a black jacket on top. It was like a little bit too much black going on. Like it's like you look like one of the Cirque du Soleil performers that would be up in the background.
Anyway, I don't know. We might have to check with Garrett on that one.
Yeah.
I think he just wears regular clothing on his YouTube channel. I've seen a couple of his videos, and it's like he's not just like the villain character in his real life. I think they're casting him as
To
that.
see if he starts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like there were scenes where they would flash back to him laughing, and it was all red.
Yeah.
It's
They're
interesting.
gonna keep bringing that every episode.
I think he's enjoying it though, and I think it's very much done from a perspective of humor. So hopefully,
sure.
I think everyone's cool with it. So yeah. Well,
so fun.
an interesting episode, and I think the next one that they teased coming up is going to be one that I'm probably the most excited for, and that's where they each grab an object from Will's office and have to rebuild it in Lego. So they kind of have to swap it out from real object to Lego. And I saw like a telescope. There was like a fan, there was like a chair, a couple other real-life objects.
The rug.
Yeah.
Yes.
The entire rug.
Chris
Maybe
and
a
Robert
little
seemed to
ambitious.
grab the rug from underneath the desk. So
Well, they were doing that, but then later they were talking about, they were showing like them as they were finishing their build, and they were doing like a desk chair.
Mhm.
They were
I
like
saw
trying to
somebody
get the
did-
seat like balanced.
They must have
maybe they were
pivoted.
helping another
Yeah.
team or changed. Maybe
Yeah.
they told them they couldn't do the rug. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
This
Either
sounds
way,
fun.
this looks
This
like a
sounds
great
fun.
challenge.
That-
I
yeah.
love like replicating other things in Lego and like trying to kind of transfer across mediums like that. So I think this will be really interesting.
Yeah.
like
Lego
that.
Masters is a lot of fun, the way they schedule the challenges and organize these things. But this team challenge might not necessarily give everybody the best idea of how good they are at building Lego.
Right.
So this, when you're directly compared to an object, how well you're able to execute that thing, there's a little bit of luck involved with what object you grab, but the execution, it really matters, and it really shows the skill of the builders
It's gonna be
working
very
on it. So,
technique emphasized.
yeah,
Yes.
it's not so much a gimmick. There's no motion usually.
You're not just gonna be able to stack 2x4 bricks in this challenge.
No.
It's not gonna
Nope.
work.
So we'll see how this shakes out. It could be very
Yeah.
exciting to see.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank
Yeah.
you guys for sharing your
Yay.
thoughts. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. And we'll be sorry this one's a little bit late. I was sick. We were all busy. People were out at conventions.
Conventions.
Yes.
So we're back. Sorry, it's a day late. Not too bad. We'll be back
Yeah.
hopefully on schedule next week for you guys. Thanks for watching.
Okay.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. See you then. Bye bye.
Bye.